Nikon just announced the APS-C size sensored mirrorless camera for the Z mount system called the Z50. I'm gonna go over it today with the specs. Also want to mention the marketing of the camera, at least in the USA. Gonna read this quote first. Meet the Z series mirrorless camera for the rest of us. Insanely small, tough, dead simple to use, connected to your phone, ready to transform you into a pro caliber creator. Your followers won't know what hit them. Build quality appears to be very similar to the Z6 and Z7. There is a little bit of downside with that pop-up flash that is in the camera because weather resistance is probably not as good due to that. It has dual dials on the camera, which I think is a very, very nice feature for a camera of this level. The EVF extends back from the camera quite a bit, which is nice from an ergonomic standpoint. With the Z6 and Z7, it's very similar. Of course, this is a little bit more compact, but it still jets out quite a bit, which is nice. It does have the U1 and U2 custom setting save modes on the top main dial, which is nice to see. That's always good to be able to push full settings into those and then be able to switch between those quickly. And then when you switch them, it'll reset the settings but still use your saved settings, so that's really nice. It does have a microphone port with the creator aspect to it. I think that fits well. It doesn't have a headphone jack, but I don't think that's a big deal for a camera like this at this price point. It is nice to see that it has some type of phase detect, contrast detect, mixed autofocus system. Of course, we'll really have to see once it comes out with how good it is, but it is in there and it's not just like a simple contrast-based system. The bottom of the camera, you have the battery slot and SD card slot down there. That's not ideal. I use those on my M50 and M5 now with those cameras, and it's just, if you're connecting it to a tripod, you just have to consider it might not be easy to pull a battery out. With that, you have a ENEL25 battery. This is a new battery for the whole system, and of course it's not the same as the Z6 and Z7, which is a hassle if you're trying to use both this camera and those ones for maybe a backup or whatever. You'll have a different battery. So with that battery, it is around 300 shots per charge rated. It'll of course be more in most situations, but not super great. It's okay, I guess. Would have been nicer to see the actual EL15B battery, which is in a lot of their better cameras. It's almost double the power inside that battery, which would have been really nice. With the Sony a6600, they decided to put that larger battery in. It is, of course, a more expensive camera, so just would have been nice if they had done the older, larger capacity battery in there. With the Z50, you have the flip down screen, 180 degrees. I actually have my new used M5 from Canon that has the same mechanism for the most part. Flips fully downward. You can see here that if you try to use a tripod, it'll be right in the center of it. Now, these creators that they talk about will have to buy some type of bracket, which I'm sure there are a lot of them available. I'm going to be looking for one potentially for this. So you just basically shift the camera over from the tripod so you can still see the screen and mount it. Not a huge deal, but it is odd, one of the weirdest designs of screens, but it is nice to at least have some capability to fully face the lens. I think one of the biggest drawbacks of this camera is going to be no internal stabilization on it. Now, they do have two lenses released, or will be released with this camera. They're simple kit lenses, they're not fast. They did release a lens roadmap for the Z system, and there is one DX lens on there. It is 18 to 140 millimeter. Probably be a slow lens as well, just a large zoom. So if you want that mix of these two lenses that are coming out first, you can get that later on. I think one of the issues with the Z mount now is that all the S lenses, all the higher end lenses, they're mostly 1.8. They don't have VR in them. So with this camera, you want to potentially use like the 35, which is fine without VR, the 50 also, but if you want something wider like the 14 to 30 f4, which I think would have been a really nice combination for vlogging and all these content creators, there is a, let's see what it is, a 10 to 20 millimeter VR lens, which will probably be a nice fit for this, at least outdoors situations where you don't need a ton of light, but the sensor and the Z50 should be pretty nice. That'll be a decent combo if you do have the adapter. I do think Nikon should open up the mount to Sigma, Tamron especially, also Tokita maybe, just to have a better lens range, especially for the APS-C size stuff. I think it was a big missed opportunity not putting internal stabilization in the Z50 with that large Z mount. That way, if you put a full frame lens on the camera, I could see that being a super amazing quality level of stabilization with APS-C and then their full frame S lenses or whatever. They didn't do it this time, but maybe later, we'll see. Anyways, that was a general look at the Z50 and the Z mount system related to APS-C. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot. Likes and shares about a lot as well. Thanks again.